Hi, on behalf of National Youth Ministries, I want to take a moment just to say thank you for your investment in students through the Ministry of Fine Arts. You know, last year we had about 70,000 students participate in fine arts nationwide, and thousands of evaluators like yourself that were sacrificing time in order to help these students discover, develop, and then deploy these ministry gifts. And so thank you so much for your investment and sacrifices. One of the things that we wanted to do to help equip you as evaluators was to have my friend Jack Truan, our National Fine Arts Coordinator, come and do a brief orientation. We want to do that to ensure that your students have every opportunity to excel in the arts in these days ahead. And so once again, thank you and God bless.
When I was in college, my roommate had an old green and white El Camino. The El Camino is an interesting and perplexing vehicle. Is it a car or is it a truck? From the front, it looks like a car, but from the back, it looks like a truck. I guess when it comes right down to it, it doesn't really matter if the El Camino is a car or a truck because it's just a vehicle. Fine Arts Festival, to me, is a little like that old green and white El Camino. You see, it doesn't really matter if it's a car or a truck. It's just a vehicle. The District and National Fine Arts Festivals are simply a vehicle or a tool designed to help students. Our mission, simply stated, is to help students discover, develop, and deploy their ministry gifts. I have made the mission of the National Fine Arts Festival my own personal mission, and the success of fine arts depends heavily on whether or not you will also adopt these goals and philosophies as your own for the time you spend evaluating fine arts presentations. Helping students discover, develop, and deploy their ministry gifts. As an evaluator of students' presentations, I want to encourage you to focus on the helping students part. In general, you can help them relax, help them with a smile, help them by watching and listening to their entire presentation with your undivided attention. Help them by physically getting out of your seat and offering a hand with technical difficulties. Help them develop skills for a lifetime of ministry or vocation, not just a fine arts presentation. Help them succeed. In addition to these general and easy ways to help students, I want to give you 4 specific and critical ways you can help students through the evaluation process of your District Fine Arts Festival. First of all, evaluate each entry objectively. Fine arts public enemy number 1 is subjectivity. A subjective evaluation is based on personal opinion, history, personal belief systems, and experience. A subjective evaluation asks the question, how do I feel about this presentation based on my own personal opinions, my culture, and my personal experiences? On the other hand, an objective evaluation rules out personal feelings, bias, and experience, and rather focuses on the ideas or the presentation based simply on its own value and technical merits. Evaluators at every level of this festival must curb subjectivity as much as possible. You see, even though you may not personally like the song selection, sermon topic, or graphic design, does the student's presentation meet the technical criteria? To truly help students, you have to do your best to evaluate objectively. Evaluate each presentation based on the preset criteria of this festival and not on subjective preferences. Hopefully, you've been chosen as an evaluator for this festival because you are an expert in your field. If you are an expert in your field, then you should be able to determine what constitutes an excellent performance based solely on technique. Superior intonation is superior intonation, no matter how you feel about the song selection. Superior transitions in a sermon are superior no matter how you feel about the student's choice of text. Excellent characterization is excellent characterization no matter how you feel about the topic of the drama. A photograph with superior composition and lighting is superior no matter how you feel about the subject of the photograph. Students should be evaluated based on the criteria, not on subjective opinion or by comparing one student to another. Let me illustrate practically what this means and how it plays out in actual evaluations. The general criteria used to evaluate entries in this festival are selection, communication, presentation and technique, and effectiveness. Clearly, there are subjective elements to the evaluation process we use for this festival. Selection and effectiveness are subjective by their very nature. Some selections will personally appeal to you more than others, but that must not be the basis for nor affect the evaluation of the presentation. One may feel, subjectively, that there was no evident ministry value, but someone else in a different setting may find it very effective. Think of it like this. Little Joey Jones is singing for you. You don't personally care for the song, or the style of the song, or his long hair, so you say, there was very little evident ministry, it just didn't do anything for me personally. So you give Joey 3 points on both selection and effectiveness. Now imagine little Joey singing that same song at the last family reunion. When he finished, there was not a dry eye at that picnic. Mom and Aunt Minnie were extremely blessed by Joey and his song and his long hair. You see, Joey's Aunt Minnie feels his ministry is very evident and highly effective, and you will never be able to convince her otherwise. You see, Fine Arts Evaluator number 1 may give 2 or 3 points on selection because he doesn't like the song. But Evaluator number 2 will almost certainly give it 5 points because she loves the song. It reminds her of her childhood. So what do you think happens when the students get back their score sheets? They are left feeling confused and asking, was this a good selection or a bad selection? Subjective evaluations do not help students. Subjective evaluations confuse students and anger youth pastors and parents. So here's a solution that I suggest. Simply this: be generous with your points within the subjective sections of the criteria, selection and effectiveness. It won't affect the final outcome or overall rating if a helpful and wise evaluator will just go ahead and give 4 or 5 points on selection and 9 or 10 points on effectiveness. As an evaluator, you have the power to either validate or devalue the students and their ministries by what you say and what you do with your points on selection and effectiveness. Those 2 sections of criteria are all a matter of subjective opinion and perspective anyway. But here's the really important part. If you give generous points on selection and effectiveness, then the points given on communication and presentation and technique must be completely objective and honest. Presentation and technique scores and comments must be extremely weighty. Really make the points and comments count on these more objective elements of the process. So above all, evaluate each entry objectively. Secondly, evaluate using consistent scoring methods. A common misconception among students, parents, and leaders is that fine arts evaluators start at the maximum points possible, which are 40, and then take points off or dock them for everything the student does or says wrong. That approach to scoring is neither helpful nor fair to the students, especially those who are in the 6th grade and have never entered a photograph or a drama or a song in a festival before. So when scoring, use 33 or 34 as an average, a place to start. In other words, look at every entry as average. Each entry is a 33 before they say a word, make a move, or sing a note. Then score accordingly up or down based on their individual performance. Not in comparison to other students, but in comparison to what you know to be excellent technique. Is the student's presentation above average? Then move up the scale from 33 and give enough points to put them in the 36 to 40 range of scores. Does the student still have much to develop? Then keep the scores in the 28 to 35 range of scores. If all Fine Arts Festival evaluators will begin with 33 as a place to start, we will see a dramatic change in not only consistency between evaluators, but consistency from district to district, as well as consistency from districts to nationals. Also, in your scoring process, reward creativity. Students should be rewarded, not punished or discouraged for being creative. Don't approach the category you've been asked to evaluate with so much in-the-box thinking that creative entries either go unnoticed, unrewarded, or worse, punished. If an entry comes along that is not exactly the norm for what is typically seen in that category, but the critical elements of the criteria are met with excellence, give them points, reward them, give them encouragement, reward them for taking a risk and being creative. This is especially important in the art division and writing categories. So evaluate objectively, evaluate using consistent scoring methods, and thirdly, evaluate using kind, practical, and insightful written comments. If the student receives a perfect or near perfect score on any section of criteria, that score says it all. A perfect score speaks for itself. Written comments are not required. However, an average or below average score on any section of criteria must have a good explanation from the evaluator. I remember when I was in Teen Talent 25 years ago, getting a lower score on some section of criteria, but a good job written in the comments. It's just too confusing for a student to see 4 or 5 points given and then a great job or keep singing for Jesus written in the comments. That approach will not help a student develop their ministry gifts. Since the students generally think they were counted off or docked for something if they don't get a perfect score, then any scores that are average or below average need an explanation and helpful instruction. Also, remember to be kind but helpful and practical with your written comments. I always suggest the sandwich approach. Sandwich your objective critique between 2 slices of compliments. First, state something kind and complimentary. Then give specific, meaty, and helpful critique and instruction, and then top it off with one last positive statement. Here is an excellent example of a well-done score sheet. Positive first comment, great song. Helpful and honest critique, open vowels, nicer sound, end phrases together, followed by a positive comment, very effective. Note the scoring as well, 5 on selection and 10 on effectiveness, but with an overall final score of 33. You must give an honest critique, but never be mean. Just be nice. Students can handle honesty. It's sarcasm and meanness that no one is willing to tolerate. Another practical way to help students when it comes to the actual evaluation and scoring of the entry is to watch the students as much as possible, especially in categories where evaluating movement, signs, or motion are concerned. Give them your undivided attention. Most students have worked too hard and paid too much money to be involved for you to look down at your score sheets for the majority of their presentation. So, evaluate each entry objectively. Evaluate using consistent scoring methods. Evaluate using kind, practical, and insightful written comments. And finally, evaluate as a team. You are not just the Lone Ranger or rogue evaluator here to judge students. You are part of a team whose mission is to help students discover, develop, and deploy their ministry gifts. So I encourage you to work as a team. Each panel of evaluators should consist of a captain, a timekeeper, and a rules judge. If you are unsure of your role on the panel, or if you don't have the tools you need, like a stopwatch or a rule book, be sure to get what you need from your local coordinators. Team captains should sit in the middle. Each evaluator should total their scores. When the presentation is complete, take your score sheets and pass them to the captain. The captain should then glance at the point spread. If there is more than 5 points difference between evaluators on the same panel for any given evaluation, the captain should pass the sheet back to the one who is too high or too low and communicate inconspicuously what adjustments to the scores need to be made. Evaluate each entry objectively. Evaluate using consistent scoring methods. Evaluate using kind, practical, and insightful written comments, and evaluate as a team. You have the opportunity before you to inspire and equip some of this nation's brightest and most talented students. You have the power to make this a very positive and validating experience for many students. I hope you'll use it wisely. I hope you'll adopt the mission of fine arts as your own while you're an evaluator, and that you will look for every opportunity to help students discover, develop, and deploy their ministry gifts. We can all succeed in our mission by following the simple steps outlined in this orientation and by always putting the students first. Thank you again for being a part of this team, and I hope you have a fantastic time at your Fine Arts Festival. I hope that you will find the joy of equipping young people to not only discover their gifts, but to develop them and ultimately to deploy them in real-world application, either in a ministry or a vocation.